The pole that sends you tumbling down a rock face isn't the cheap one. It's the $250 carbon pole that snapped clean in half the second you leaned on it heading downhill. Strip away the marketing and a trekking pole is three things: a shaft, a lock, and a grip. Carbon shatters where aluminum just bends, a twist lock seizes where a lever lock holds, and the weight you paid $200 to shave is a couple of ounces you'll never feel on the trail. So here are 5 trekking pole brands robbing you blind. Worst 2 first, then 2. I'd actually trust to catch my weight on a steep descent, plus 4 quick checks that will spot a rip-off pole in 10 seconds. In 5th place, the MSR DynaLock Ascent Carbon. Look, I give this folding setup honest credit. It packs down tiny and feels solid when you put your weight on it. But let's do some trail math. You are dropping about $170. For that premium, you save roughly 6 ounces compared to a basic $40 aluminum pair. That is the weight of a couple of energy bars. For that tiny weight savings, you trade away actual durability. If your tip catches a root on a steep descent and you stumble sideways, this brittle carbon shaft can fail cleanly under the side load. No warnings, just splinters. Clever engineering does not buy you a tougher pole. Hit subscribe now if you want to keep your gear alive, because the value math only gets dumber from here. Nice fold, but you still paid carbon money for a shaft that can snap. In 4th place, the Gossamer Gear LT5. I get the appeal. If you're a gram counter or a thru hiker who treats every single ounce like a personal insult, a 13-ounce pair of carbon poles looks like heaven. But at $195, you're buying a fragile dream. That ultra-thin carbon shaft has to be babied constantly. If you jam the tip between 2 granite rocks on a steep descent and stumble, that side load is going to snap the pole instantly. You're left holding a handful of expensive, jagged splinters. For normal backpackers, that's a massive fragility tax, just to save a tiny bit of swing weight. It's a high-stakes gamble on the trail, and the value only plummets as we head to the next rank. Number 3, the nameless Amazon Carbon Crowd. Around $40 buys you polished listing photos, random letter branding, and questionable epoxy resin holding cheap carbon threads together. They love using the phrase aircraft grade, but the Federal Trade Commission has actively cracked down on these unverified material claims. You also get twist locks that seize the moment trail dust gets inside. Every bad pole so far suffers from the same disease, paying for carbon that snaps, or for specs nobody can back up. Before opening your wallet, run these 4 quick checks. First, check the shaft. Stick to aluminum over carbon unless you actually race. Second, check the lock. Demand an external lever, never a twist lock. Third, check the grip. Look for real cork, then foam, and avoid cheap rubber. Finally, check the parts. Make sure the brand actually sells replacement tips and sections. The next 2 spots prove that rugged aluminum solves your trail problems for a fraction of the cost of fragile carbon. Cheap photo, cheaper resin. You're buying risk, not engineering. Next. In 2nd place, we have the entire category of anti-shock poles. I get why they sell. You push down on the grip in the gear aisle, feel that soft bounce, and think your knees are saved. But on a real trail, that spring is a liability. You pay a premium, sometimes pushing prices over $200, for a mechanism that makes the tool worse. That shock absorber adds up to 150 grams of dead weight to your swing. It introduces extra moving parts that quickly wear out. The spring eventually develops a persistent rattle. Worst of all, it dulls your ground feedback. When you are planting on loose, steep scree, you need instant feedback, not a mushy delay. Many hikers disable the mechanism, meaning they paid extra to carry a heavier, louder pole. That bounce costs you balancy on loose rock. Next. And finally, in first place on our bad list, the Leki Black Series FX Carbon. I will give Leki some fair credit. The branding is premium, the engineering is real, and the cork feels great in your hand. Those carbide tips are incredibly tough too. But you are paying about $250 for a carbon shaft. Lovely fit and a shiny logo, sure, but underneath it is the same shattering carbon. This is the high watermark of bad list regret. My opening promise about side load fractures comes to a head right here. Controlled tests prove these shafts snap under a dynamic side load of just 3 kilonewtons. If you catch your tip on a descent and stumble, that expensive badge will not stop the pole from splintering into jagged pieces. You paid a massive logo tax for a tool that leaves you stranded with a handful of sharp carbon toothpicks, but the bleeding stops here. Now watch what actually holds up on a steep downhill. In second place for the poles, actually worth your cash, the Black Diamond Trail. This $100 setup marks the point where we stop talking about shattered carbon and start talking about real peace of mind. Instead of fragile composites, you get a thick shaft made of 7075 aluminum. Yes, they weigh about 21 ounces a pair, but that extra weight is exactly what keeps you upright when you stumble. I have put my full weight onto these shafts during a bad slip, and instead of exploding into splinters, they just flexed and held. The holding power comes from their FlickLock lever locks. These are solid external cams you can easily adjust while wearing thick gloves, and they do not slip when the temperature drops. The grip holds up for years without crumbling, meaning you buy this tool once instead of replacing it every single season. You are paying for pure trail function with zero logo hype. It is the simple, heavy-duty answer for anyone who values coming home with their gear in one piece. Good, and the next pole makes the whole premium rack look silly. And finally, in first place on our good list, Cascade Mountain Tech. This brand turns the whole premium outdoor market into plain trail math. For about $30 to $40, you get genuine cork grips, external lever locks, and carbide tips. The real victory here is rebuildability. They list replacement tips, baskets, and individual quick lock sections right on their store page. If you take a bad spill and bend a section, you do not throw the whole set in the trash. You just order a single replacement part for under $10, heat up the joint, and rebuild the tool yourself. Let us be completely honest about the trade-offs. The aluminum is somewhat softer than Black Diamond's alloy, and the plastic locks feel slightly less crisp. But these budget poles cover the exact same basic trail job as that $250 Leki set for a tiny fraction of the money. When you stand a cheap, rebuilt Cascade right next to a shattered Leki, you realize premium pricing is often just a giant rip off. You are paying for a luxury badge instead of trail reliability. So what pole saved you on a steep downhill, and which one snapped on you? Next up, we are tearing down backpacking water filters. This channel follows the specs, not the sponsors. Subscribe for the next teardown. Across these 7 poles, the pattern is clear. Premium brands sell fragile status symbols, while real trail safety demands simple, repairable metal. This channel follows the specs, not the sponsors. Subscribe to save your knees.